Dun, 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 dun. Good evening and good morning and good day to everyone out there in YouTube land and podcast land, and welcome to episode 52 or 2, depending on how you count it, of Lancing with Myself, the weekly 5-minute podcast and YouTube show where I take a little bit of time out of my week to talk about being a freelance creative, especially when you're low on spoons or low on cash. Now, this week I want to talk about what the whole purpose of this podcast is, which is, of course, to help you learn and be inspired to be a game designer, which is something that I think everyone should have a crack at, to see if they're good at it, see if they're passionate about it, and more people should do it. Just like learning to write, learning to paint, making a game is a wonderful exercise that teaches you a lot about yourself and gets you to make amazing things that you can share with your friends. And it's a really good way to learn about games and to learn about how people work, and it's just a great fun exercise to do. If you've got any interest in games, and who hasn't, because they're amazing, you should make games. So, of course, you have to learn how to make games, and that's what comes to the next step, which is about what is the purpose of these things, how do we learn, how do we make time for learning. We tend to have a very strange Victorian idea about learning that's sort of brought into us from a little kids, is that learning is something that happens until we have a test. You learn something, you have a test, you move on to the next thing. You go to school for 18 years and then you have become learned at something, you become learned at something, and then you go on and use that information. So learning becomes this sort of a process that we must undergo when we are ignorant, and then after that we will stop being ignorant. And that makes learning very stressful, because there's no other way to take the fact that we have to learn as but a signal that we don't know enough. I used to have a sticker on the back of my car which said, "Oh no, not another learning experience," which of course is a joke about the fact that we can see all our failures and setbacks as learning experiences. But again, that builds us this association that learning is something we do when we suffer, when we fail. And learning is something we have to do until we reach a point where we feel knowledgeable. And frankly, yeah, that can be really dispiriting. A lot of the time in our life as a creative, we are working with this problem of, am I enough? Am I good enough? If you look back a couple of weeks, you'll see there's an episode called give yourself permission to design. You are enough, you can go out there and you can make games. You qualify. But learning says the opposite. Learning says, well, if you've still got something to learn, then you aren't qualified. We need to sort of rethink our whole aspect on learning, because learning is good for us. Learning is something we're always going to need to do. Learning is something that isn't about need, but rather about growth. We always can learn new things, and we always want to be learning. Not just because we have a deficiency in some sense, but rather because learning is good for us. Stretching our capabilities and learning new ideas keeps our brain growing and keeps our brain thinking in new ways. It can be exhausting, it can be dispiriting, it can be something that makes you feel bad about yourself, but you have to try to work on ways to make it feel less like that. Whatever your stage is in the process, you have to find a way to make learning fun, as the old jokes used to go, and engage with it because it's good for you. It's even just going to make your brain think in a different way, and that's really important for creativity. When I teach my game design masterclass, we have set periods where people are designing, and set periods where people are playtesting, and periods where people are learning, because being in those different states of playtesting and learning actually lets their creative brain think in different ways and rest and be ready to create. When you are distracted, your brain is actually at the back of your brain working on things. It's working on things differently depending on what the front of your brain is doing. If you are playing a game, your brain is actually taking that in and thinking about things and resting, and being able to gain energy back. When you are distracted from what you were doing, you get this power back of energy. But when you are taking information in, when you are learning things, your brain is actually powering up in a different way, and it'll get a bigger charge out of it. And so you'll often find that it's after you've read a book or watched a movie or gone to a museum or had an experience that your brain will suddenly go, hey, let's make a game about something, because I spent a long time taking in and now I want to push out. So it's really important, even no matter what stage you are in the process, to take some time out on a regular basis. You can schedule it, or you can just do it whenever you seem to have time to learn. Luckily, the internet is full of resources for you to learn from. You can learn from podcasts and YouTube shows and books and all sorts of things, magazines, activities, courses. Wherever you are in Australia or the world, there's definitely going to be someone out there willing to teach you something about games. You can even study it at college now around the world, we teach it in schools. And if you're in Australia and you're looking for someone to help you set up a program, as I say, I am a teacher of game design, so get in touch. Next week, in the next episode, we're going to talk about all the resources that I can think of for you to learn and how to use them and how to build them into your schedules, so you can think about having some fun old learning in your life. Till next time, pat dogs, be good, play games, have fun.